Hi Kanukis, welcome to Kanuka Home Practice. At the moment we have a focus on the sacral chakra. So today my focus is going to be in this area, but particularly on the glutes, a little bit of hamstrings too. So come ready to work these babies, and I'll see you on the mat. And the props that you're going to need may not be exactly what you see here. There are going to be lots of different options according to what you have at home. So first of all, if you are on a wooden floor or like a slippery surface like this one that we have in the studio, then grab yourself a blanket or put some socks on. I prefer the blanket personally. Now, if you're on carpet or a surface that doesn't slide, don't grab the blanket. You're probably not going to need it. I would instead either recommend paper plates if you have them, floor sliders if you have them, and if not, you have none of those things, that's fine. You actually will have an option to do something different, very similar, working the same muscle groups, but we won't be sliding the feet on the floor. Next, you'll see this pile of blocks that I have here. Now, really, the only blocks that you'll need are just 2. If you have more than 2, you could grab 4, or alternatively, grab a chair or a stool or a bench, or position yourself next to the couch or next to something that is raised up, at least maybe this level up off the floor, so that you can use that during just our warm-up. We're going to start on our back today. Grab 2 blocks to come down with. And also, if you're using your blanket, bring that with you so that you can reach it. And also have your stool or your chair or your bench or your extra blocks, whatever you're using, have that handy too. We're going to come down on the back and start with 1 block between the thighs. So I like to have the block this width, like that, and the idea there is that my knees are at least as wide as my hips, maybe even a little wider, so that when I squeeze in, I feel that's a nice activation up here. Other people might prefer to have it there. That becomes personal preference and the way that your body is made. We all are made slightly differently. So 1 block between the thighs, and the other block, bring that on the lowest setting right underneath your sacrum. So we're just a little bit lifted up off the floor. Good. Have your feet not right close into your buttocks here. Just if they're there, walk them a little bit further away so that there's going to be less pressure on your knees if we lift up from here. And then from there, just bring in the backs of your hands into your low back area. And if you feel comfortable too, just close down the eyes and take some breaths into your hands. So as you inhale, try to feel the expansion of the breath push down into your hands. And as you exhale, just soften. Inhale, breathe into the hands. Exhale, soften. And keep going. And if this is quite new for you, this idea of expanding into the low back, and you're still getting your head around it, just stick with this. If you want to add on something a little bit extra, and keep that going, but we're going to bring the hands instead to the front of the ribs. And now with your inhale, you're going to breathe into your low back. On your exhale, you're going to draw your ribs away from your hands. So you're pulling the front ribs down into your low back area. Inhale, breathe into the low back. Exhale, pull the front ribs down. Nice, keep that going. And keep squeezing the block between the thighs. Soften the jaw and the shoulders. And then start, as you continue this breathing, start to press into the feet. And pressing especially into the heels. As you do this, notice any sensations in your buttocks. With that downward push of the heels, we're looking for just the beginning of sensation in the buttocks. So like they're starting to light up, they're starting to contract a little bit. All right. So I'm going to present you with another option here. You could stay doing what you're doing with the breath, with the sacrum on the block, just focusing on pushing your feet harder and harder into the floor, really looking for that burning sensation in the buttocks. If you want something more, then you're going to just continue that press of the feet so much so that your sacrum lifts up off the block just a little bit. As soon as you're there, lifted off the block, come back to your breath, expand into the low back, maybe use one of your hands to remind yourself where you want that expansion to go. And on the exhale, you're pulling or drawing the front ribs away from that top hand. Good. Keep pressing into the feet. So this should be a pretty big burn in the buttocks. That is exactly what we're looking for. Now, if instead you're feeling this in your low back, then bring the sacrum back down onto the block because it's not the sensation we're looking for, and you'd be better off just taking it a little slower, letting your buttocks catch up and find more strength there without the added extra challenge of having the pelvis lifted. Good. So wherever you are, pelvis up or down, you're going to just start to think about, without moving your feet, you're going to start to think about pulling your heels back towards you. And that's going to light up your hamstrings. All right, so here we're going to stay doing that. And if this all just gets too much sensation, you can always just come back with your pelvis onto the block or quit the extra work that you're doing with your feet down into the floor, pulling the heels back. That's fine. We're going to stay a little bit longer in whichever position, and we're going to warm up into the wrists. So bring the hands up toward the ceiling, and they're placed above the shoulders. Open your hands out really wide. Stretch the fingers as wide as they'll go, and then close your fists in as tight as they'll go. And alternate between these two hand positions, opening and closing, with as much strength and brightness as you can. So bright open hands, strong closed fist. Now it's going to bring some warmth into the wrists and into the forearms. And as we do this, remember once more your breath. Inhale into the low back. Exhale, front ribs draw down. Squeezing the block between the thighs. Lots going on here. We're going to hold for a final 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, bring the pelvis back down to the block if it's not already there. All right, take the block out from between the thighs. This is where you're going to have different options according to what you have in your house for floors. So first of all, for those on carpets, if you have something that's going to slide across the floor, like a paper plate or a slider, you're going to bring those things underneath your feet. And you're probably going to have to kind of bring this block out and shift your whole body down toward the end of the mat so that whatever is sliding on the floor can be off the mat because the mat's sticky. So we want to be off that, right? So that's only for those who have a sliding option. And same goes for anybody on a wooden floor at home. Shuffle down to the end of your mat till your feet are off the mat. And then bring that block back in under the sacrum and bring your blanket in underneath your feet. So I'm going to be showing that option because that's what we have in the studio. For those at home who don't have the sliding option at all, that's fine. You're going to stay exactly where you were, right on your mat with your sacrum up on your block. I'm going to show this option first because also this is going to be a regression as well. So this can be a little bit more easy on the hamstrings, but it's still hard work. So don't get me wrong. It's going to be good. So you can anybody, no matter what sliding option you have, can come back and do this one if you'd prefer to do that. All right, so we're doing this option first. You're going to take wherever your feet were, we're going to just walk them out a little bit further. So take them a good step further away from you and lift the toes up off the floor. Come back once more to that breath into the low back. On your inhale, on your exhale, drawing those front ribs away from the hands. So we're still nice and steady, strong through the torso here. And you're going to press the heels down into the floor and try to drag the feet back. And that's all we're doing, holding there with the breath. And you can hold with the 2 feet dragging back together, or alternate one side and then the other if it gets a little bit too intense. Okay, next option for people who have the sliding option. You're going to shuffle all the way down to the end of the mat if you're not already there. Bring whatever you're sliding on under your feet, come back onto your back, come back with the block underneath the sacrum. And this is there so that you have the option of staying with your sacrum on the block. Once again, we're inhaling to the low back, exhaling front ribs, draw back toward the floor. And then you're going to just take little movements, sliding your feet forward just a little bit and pull back to your starting position. And push forward and pull back. So you start small, because sometimes it can happen that if you go too far your first time, you go beyond your capacity of ability to pull back. So it can be a lot harder to pull back, of course, than to push forward. So just watch out for that. So if you're doing this with your sacrum on the block and you're like, yeah, but this is easy, Ella, and I want a more difficult option, please. Well, all you got to do is to get that pelvis lifted up off the block. Make sure that you've not gone into your back bend shape here. We want to maintain our neutral spine, so front ribs pull down and keep the breath in the low back. And then we're doing the same thing here. So you might want to bring your hands to the floor for this. There's a little bit of a lever to press down into the floor with. And then just little slides to begin with. And if you gain more confidence as you go, you can get a little bit more distance. And just check yourself. You can use your eyes to gaze down to check that your ribs are not popping up and down with this movement, which looks like kind of like this if you're doing that. We don't want that to happen. We want to maintain complete rigidity through the spine, through the torso, and just have this movement in the legs and hips. All right, that's a lot of hard work. We're going to come down, back down to the floor, roll the spine down off the block, and just pull the knees in for a moment before we start the next exercise. Okay, so for the next exercise, this is where we're going to be using either the stack of blocks or the stool or chair or edge of the couch. I'm going to set myself up with my blocks. If you just have 2 blocks and nothing else, that's fine. This will work still just fine. So you're going to position yourself with your feet up on your raised surface. Right. So you can have heels up, feet flat, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to start with your arms reaching up to the ceiling here. Draw the chin down into the throat, and then reach the arms all the way as far as they can go up to the ceiling, and go at a diagonal angle like you're reaching beyond your knees. Keep the chin into the throat and just lean the head back a little bit. Keep reaching through the arms. So this reach of the arms kind of pulls the shoulder blades away from the spine, and we want to keep that shape as we go through this exercise. But if you're here and your neck is getting a little bit sore or tense, that happens to me too. That's okay. You want to keep your shoulder blades in this shape where they are, and just fold your elbows to bring your hands to clasp behind the head. Then you can lean your head back into your hands, but still keep reaching the elbows up toward the ceiling at that diagonal angle. All right. And then you're going to take that inhale into the low back. As you exhale, pull your front ribs down and lift your pelvis up to the sky. You keep reaching through the elbows as you lower slowly your pelvis back down to the floor. And with that, your elbows can probably reach a little bit higher. And then we're going to lift the pelvis up off the floor. And as you go down and up with the pelvis, you'll notice that maybe there's a little bit of this rolling up and down the spine kind of motion. And if it's not there, it may be that maybe that you could amp up a little bit more, that either reach through the arms or the reach through the elbows, especially as the pelvis comes down to the floor. Good. So If you're feeling this all in your abs, good. That's where we do want some sensation. If you're feeling this all in your hamstrings, good. That's also where we want sensation. If you want more of that in your hamstrings, you can shuffle your body away from where your feet are sitting on their raised surface, and you can lift your toes up as well. And that's going to create that extra tension into the hamstrings. All right, we're going to do a last breath or two here. Whew. And then release that. My goodness, that's hard work. Okay, we're going to come from there, roll onto your side, or however you want to come up, and we're going to come into a hands and knees position. You can put your props to one side. And if you're wanting a little bit more warming up into your wrists, you can just take a moment with your fingers back towards your knees and just have a little circle here over these reverse wrists, and then circle in the other direction. It's always really good to warm up the wrists before you weight bear on them. All right, let's shake them out. Okay, so on the hands and knees, we're going to start by just looking down at the right knee. And you're going to slide, or the right foot rather, you're going to slide that foot to the back of the mat and slide the foot forward so the knee comes back down to the floor. And do that on the left side. Slide the left foot back, slide it forward, knee comes back to the floor. All right, so that's the movement we're going to do. But now we're going to add a little extra layer of challenge, which is a block on our sacrum or on the low back. And what that's going to do is going to be a little teller for us as to how stable we're holding the pelvis. I'll show you why. Because if we're creating this movement in the low back rather than in the hips, then it's in the hips and the glutes, then it's going to look like this, and that block will fall. So we're really going to try and focus on the glute doing the work to extend that hip straight here. This is our straight hip. And then the hip flexing to pull that knee forward. No part of this movement wants to be in the spine. It's really hard to do. And if you're struggling with it, if the block is falling off all over the place, just make your movement smaller. You don't have to go to a straight leg. Okay, so keep alternating sides here with the block, taking it slow. And we're going to add in an extra little thing in a minute, but just get used to this feeling, kind of like a pendulum movement with your legs. They're just swinging forward, not needing any other part of the body to move with it. All right. Next time that your right leg is extended, hold it there. Right foot to the back of the mat. Good. If you're happy with the balance with this next position, you can do this. Otherwise, keep your two hands on the floor. But if you feel confident with your balance today, bring your left hand either behind the left ear or behind the back of the skull. And that's there just as an extra little bonus for us to be able to pull the back of the head back into the hand to keep the neck in line with the rest of the spine. If you're there with two hands on the floor, that's fine. You can still get the feeling of pulling your throat up away from the floor. Back of the head shifts up toward the sky. Chin stays into the throat. Right. So we're there with our right foot at the end of the mat. And now you're just going to squeeze your right glute. Try to kind of pull that right glute or squeeze it up into the block that's still on your sacrum, and use that motion to just lift that back foot up off the floor. It doesn't have to go high. Point the toes down to the floor and push back through your heel. Good. Press down into your right hand or into both hands if they're both on the floor. Lift the front of the throat, pull the head up into the hand if it's there. Nice. Hold. Keep squeezing that right glute up into the block. And then we'll return back, two knees to the floor, two hands to the floor. Okay, if you need to shake out your wrists, you can sit back on your heels, take the block off, and do that. All right, back into your tabletop. block back on the sacrum. Let's do the other side. So slide the left toes back, hold them there. If you're doing it, you can bring the right hand behind the ear or the back of the head and just pull the skull up into the hand. If not, you're just lifting the throat up away from the floor. Press down into your left hand, squeeze the left glute up into the block, and use that to lift the leg off the floor. Point the toes to the floor and then push back through your heel. So that just really ramps up even more a little bit, that glute work. Keep the throat lifted. Now see here if you can breathe. Inhale into your low back, and exhale, draw the front ribs up into that low back area. Nice. One more breath here. And 2 hands down, bring your knee down. Remove the block, and we're gonna start moving. All right, whoa, take a little wriggle. That was some hard work. If you need to shake your wrists or wriggle your wrists, then do that too. Okay, so we're gonna start with the right side. Just what we did before, slide the right foot back to the back of the mat. And then you're gonna take your left foot, swivel it off the mat, turning to the right, and we're coming into a side plank variation. So we're weight bearing down into the left hand, left knee, and our right foot's on the floor. Take your right hand, and now bring it to the front of your left hip. Press your left glute forward into that hip. Now use your right hand on the front of your ribs. Draw the front ribs away from the hand. And lastly, bring it to your low back and inhale, expand into there. Exhale, draw the front ribs away. Good. So we want to make sure that we maintain this alignment, this kind of neutral spine as we move. And we're going to challenge it now with what we're doing next. So bring your right hand back onto the front of your left hip. And you're going to press that hip forward into the hand. Keep it pressing as you start to pull your right knee forward. So keep pressing that left hip forward, 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 forward. And you're pulling your left knee up toward the top of the mat. All right, that's really hard. Look down at the top of the mat and step your right foot there and come up into an arrowhead warrior. So we're leaning forward, pitched over this right leg, back toes are on the floor. Bring your hands, interlock them in behind the back of the head, open your elbows out and pull the back of the skull, or you can have fingertips behind the ears alternatively. Pull the back of the skull back and step that left foot forward. So we're in this funny kind of half squat position. And we want to have our knees, for this particular position, just for today, we want to have the knees above the ankles and the hips back behind there with this neutral spine, head draw back of the skull, drawing back into the hands. And we're going to just come upright from there. Keep the hands where they are. Keep pulling the skull back. And as you come upright, squeeze your glutes forward. You can bring one of your hands down to the front of your hip points, just as a little reminder where you want to push your glutes forward to. And then keep your hand there, and you're just going to slide the hips back with the help of your hand back to this half kind of squat position or half chair position almost. All right, and then come upright again. And slide the hips back. All right, we're going to be adding on an extra layer of challenge to this. Keep going. Good. All right, so this time we're going to just pause in our little half chair position. Check with your spare hand, with one of your hands, just bring to the front of the ribs and draw the ribs away from the hand so that we're still nice and solid through the trunk. And then we're going to stand upright, and we're going to bring the weight onto the right leg, onto the right foot as we stand up, and bring the left knee in front of us. And then the left foot comes down as we come back into that squat, and we're back where we started. And then stand upright, left knee lifts in front, and then come back into your half chair or half squat position. Keep going. All right. Check in with your breath. Can you still inhale into your low back? And exhale, drawing the front ribs in. Inhale into the low back. And exhale, draw the front ribs in. Okay, you can keep doing this And if you want something more challenging, I'm going to give it to you. So this time, I'm going to inhale, lift the left knee up. And exhale, you're going to take those left toes back into that arrowhead position behind you. And then inhale, we're going to stand up with that left knee in front. And exhale, left toes come back to that arrowhead. So to help yourself out with this movement, bring your right hand into the front of that right hip. Left hand stays behind the skull. And as you come with those left toes back behind you into your arrowhead, you're pushing your hip crease on the right side backwards. So you're sliding that right hip back. As you come up, the hand stays there, and instead, you're pushing that right glute forward into that right hand. Sliding the right hip back to step the left foot back. Pushing the right glute forward as you stand upright. Keep pulling the skull back into that left hand. Good. All right. So one last time, wherever you are, you're going to pause with your left leg lifted in front of you. And everybody's going to come in this position with the right hand in front of the hip, left hand behind the skull. You're going to do that same idea. We're going to slide that right hip back, helping with the right hand to push it back. And the left leg, for those who were just staying with the 2 feet on the floor before, you're going to step that left foot back to arrowhead and just pause here. For those who are doing the arrowhead to knee lift, just what we did before, you're going to take it a step further now and lift that back leg off the floor, using that left glute, squeezing up to get that leg lifted. Once you're there, you're going to check in with everything. Use one of your hands to check the front ribs, pull them up away from the floor. Check your low back that you can still inhale and breathe into there. Check your left glute, that it's working to keep that left leg lifted. Press down into your right foot, keeping a bend in your right knee, that right hip sliding back. Lots of hard work going on here. This is our warrior 3. And then we're going to do a sneaky move here to come down to sit, where we bring the left knee behind the right. Use your hands to the floor as you bend the knee and swivel to the right as you sit on your bum. Whoa. All right, take a little rest break here. You can do some shoulder rolls, lifting one shoulder up to the ear at a time, and then you roll the shoulder blade back and down. Nice. All right, we're going to do that all on the other side now. So we're going to do a swivel to the left, swiveling all the way around to the back of the mat. We'll come down with the right knee, left leg, I'm a bit tangled with my mic. Left leg slides to the back of the mat. Good. And then slide the foot forward. So imagine like that block is there on the low back. Slide the left toes back, slide them forward, that pendulum swinging. We're going to hold it there this time. Slide the left foot back, hold it. And we're going to swivel that right foot off the mat, coming to the side plank, turning to the left, right hand down, right knee down. Take a second here, check in with your things. Use your left hand into the low back, inhale, expand, breathe into that area. Use your left hand on the front of the ribs. As you exhale, pull the front ribs away from the hand. And finally, we're going to bring that hand to the front of the left hip and push the left buttock forward into that hand. Keep that going. Keep that push going as you float that left foot and just start to pull the left knee toward the front of the mat here. Well, now we're at the back of the mat, but toward where your right hand is on the floor. Keep pushing that right glute forward. I think I have the hand on the wrong hip, so bring your hand onto the right hip and push it forward as that left knee comes forward. And when you can't get that knee forward anymore, turn to look at the mat and step that left foot forward. We're coming up to stand in our arrowhead warrior. Right toes back behind us, left foot forward. Good. All right, we're going to check in with all our things in this position. Inhale into your low back. Exhale, pull the front ribs up into the back body. Keep that there. Take a little step forward with the right foot. Bring the right hand behind the head, maybe both hands if it works. Otherwise, if you preferred, you can keep one hand in front to help that hip sliding and the sliding back as we do this next movement. That's up to you. So we're going to check that the ribs stay in. Come up to stand on 2 feet. Both hips press forward. Hips slide back, and we come into this half squat, knees above the ankles, hips way back, butt way back. Come up on 2 feet, hips press forward, slide the hips back, lifting the skull up into your hand or hands. Slide it forward, right? So you can keep doing this if you preferred this, if you felt a little wobbly on that other side, or you can move closer to a wall so you've got something to hold on to. Now, if you're coming to the next step, we're going to go from this half chair position to standing on the left leg, lifting the right knee up in front. And then plant the right foot down back where it was as you squat back. Good. Right knee lifts up. And plant it back down. Good. Breathe into your low back as you inhale. Pull the front ribs back to the back body as you exhale. All right, so you can stay with this. If you want something more challenging, instead of right foot down next to the left, you're going to take it back to your arrowhead warrior. And then standing back on that left leg, right knee lifts in front. And to get that right foot back, you're going to slide this left hip back. Push that hip crease back with your left hand. Yeah, keep those ribs pulling in. All right, one last time. And then we're all going to meet in this arrowhead position, right toes back behind. Use your left hand on the back of your right glute. And use that as a little signal to lift your glute up into that hand, and that will lift your leg up too. Pull the skull back into the right hand. Use your left hand on the front of the ribs so that they can pull away from the hand. Then use the hand on the low back. Breathe into there. Check in with your left hip. Slide it back a little bit more. Nice. Hold your warrior 3 here for another final breath. I'm going to do that sneaky sit. Bring the right knee in behind the left, turning to the left, sitting on your bum. All right, last little shoulder roll here. Whew. All right, everybody. So I hope you can feel your glutes all fired up. Hope you got a bit of a sweat on like me. Any of those exercises are great things to do every day. We want to have strong glutes to carry us through the day. They're our biggest muscles in the body. They're one of the most important muscles in the body. We want to power them up and make sure that they are propelling us forward through life. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Bye.